Rise of Kingdoms is celebrating its 6th anniversary, and I've been around for 2,212 days of it. So in this video, sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why you might want to check out the game and start playing in 2024 and beyond. And yes, funny enough, it was actually a sponsored video about Rise of Kingdoms that helped me discover the game back in the day. Ultimately, I became a content creator after watching that video, and here we are today, where now I've got almost 250,000 subscribers covering primarily Rise of Kingdoms on this channel. So let's get going with reason number 1 why you might check out Rise of Kingdoms, which is that there is a ton to do. I mean, of course, why does anybody play a mobile game? Well, you're looking for something to do, but you can take this with you anywhere. And there's lots of different things you can do in this game. This is a city building war game. So of course, whether you very quickly send out some gatherers to go get some resources, or maybe you've got 10 minutes to play a small event like Ian's Ballads, or maybe you want to sit down for a longer period of time and do something like Ark of Osiris, which is a 30 versus 30 game mode over here. There are a lot of different things that you can do, whether it's something small to fill your time, or you're trying to sit down for days on end and go completely nuts. And if you're wondering, well, what is it you do for days on end here? There's this thing called Kingdom versus Kingdom, baby, where you go and your entire kingdom of, look at these are all cities, okay? And just one of the alliances, that's my alliance where you can see all the cities, but each kingdom has hundreds of players, and then there are these kingdom versus kingdom battles where many kingdoms get all paired together. So this is a map here with 8 different war camps, 3 kingdoms per war camp, potentially hundreds, if not thousands of players winning each one of them. Totally nuts, all right? Now in Kingdom versus Kingdom, you're fighting for territory, and you could be fighting for hours and hours on end. So I enjoy Rise of Kingdoms in part because you can play it on the go, and it's a great reason to play the game. If you're looking for something to do, something to optimize, there is just so much to think about and play through, even if you just want a distraction throughout your day. And I'll say for me personally, when I started playing Rise of Kingdoms, I actually had really bad insomnia, and I would be up in the middle of the night and I wanted something to do, and playing an ARPG or an FPS was way too stimulating, right? To get me wired. I mean, I was like, playing these games on hardcore difficulty where like you die, you lose all your stuff, and like yeah, not great to do that if you're up at 3 a.m. because you can't sleep, right? But I found personally Rise of Kingdoms, not that I think looking at a screen in the middle of the night is particularly healthy, but because I was up, I could just distract myself for a little bit, battle a few barbs, send out a few gatherers, switch to a farm account, be productive there. The long story short, it was just a nice little relaxing thing to do as opposed to something that amped me up, all right? So there's tons to do for whatever reason you're trying to do it. And if it's needing a distraction, which was, my case in part when I got started, to looking for something that's like stimulating but not too crazy, as you're like, standing in line at the grocery store or whatever, you got options here, okay? Reason number 2 why you might want to check out Rise of Kingdoms is that actions have consequences. And although your daily activities here probably will be pretty relaxing, there are moments of extremely high intensity in this game. And you can, if your city's attacked or you attack somebody else's city, you can lose troops permanently, okay? Actions have consequences. Battling against other players, I personally have lost 106 million tier 5 troops. That's almost $1 billion power worth of troops battling against other players, okay? And this is really, really exciting. Like I mentioned, I sort of played ARPGs on hardcore mode, where if you lose your character, you lose your stuff. Here, the thing you typically lose is troops, and the way you lose troops is sort of twofold. You could be attacking things that have those sorts of consequences where, yeah, some of what the losses are going to be is permanent. And the other way is you've got this hospital. And if your hospital's ever full from a fight where you take too many wounded units, it overflows and those troops die. GG's. So I think 99% of the time, you'll be fine in Rise of Kingdoms. There are these weird situations that can emerge based on how you're playing that just make it incredibly exciting. And this experience of permanent loss, whether it is your troops or the resources you use to heal them or train them, or it is the speed ups you use to train them or heal them, right? Like, the permanent loss of stuff simply makes the game more exciting than a game where nothing actually is at stake. Which brings us to the third reason why you might want to check out the game, because not only is there tons to do and your actions have consequences, but there are massive communities that you play with. As I mentioned earlier, there's over 100 people in this alliance that I play in. It's actually 150 people, and each kingdom has multiple alliances. And so these communities of real people that you meet and interact with extensively creates an incredible bond. And especially because actions have consequences, right? Your city is potentially at times at risk, and you're counting on these other people to look out for you in the same way that you show up and look out for them. It is a very different feeling than if you're playing a single player game on the sort of campaign. And although, sure, you might enjoy that and find it fulfilling to go beat a campaign, doing a community-based activity has a sort of scale to it that is just completely different. And even in situations where I have been losing, you find the bright spots where as a team you do some really impressive stuff, whether it's a unexpected defensive hold or even pushing into 2v1 odds and coming out on top for a time. There is just a lot to be said for the community element. Now, that community element of gameplay comes all the way down to very basic things where you can spend your energy in this game to get some extra rewards by rallying a barbarian fort. Other people join you for that, okay? You form small teams of 5 or so players for certain events in game, like this event, Ian's Ballads, okay? And you form even bigger teams of 30 plus, for this game mode, Ark of Osiris, which is an alliance versus alliance game mode. And then there's that whole kingdom versus kingdom where the scale is absolutely massive. So these communities are the reason you stick around to play the game. You join because you want to do stuff, and then you stay because of who you're doing it with. That makes sense? This is how 1, 2, and 3, for the reasons why you might want to check out this game, all come together. Now, reason number 4 is that the biggest events in this game have incredible hype that builds up over time. As I mentioned, kingdom versus kingdom is the big showdown, and there are, I think, almost a dozen different formats of KVK at this point. And at any moment in time, there are tons of different kingdoms that are in different stages of battling it out to control Kingsland in kingdom versus kingdom. But starting all the way down to the experience of matchmaking, where it's like, oh man, like what kingdom are we going to fight? And the reputations of all these different groups, and how's it going to sort of shape out? To then seeing who you're matched up against. And Eve of the Crusade is this event that takes place leading up to your entering KVK, where you kind of get a sense of how active each kingdom is and how committed they are. Every step of the way sort of builds the intensity leading up to these major fights. And even if you're not in a major fight, people get really excited for some of the biggest kingdoms in the game to see what they're up to and how sort of their kingdoms are evolving toward KVK and how that fight is going. So not only, like I said, will you find that there's tons to do, that your actions have consequences and these communities are massive, but the hype, and it's the design of the game, that the hype builds and builds and builds and builds until you have that big fight. And it is intense. And the final reason, not that there's only 5 reasons, but here's my top 5, right? The final reason I'd recommend that you consider playing Rise of Kingdoms is that your passion is rewarded. What do I mean by that? Whether you are passionate about your gameplay and game knowledge, working on your equipment and min-maxing what you make and when you make it, or your armaments, which you use to customize the way a commander performs, or even which types of commanders you like to collect. Infantry, cavalry, archers. Do you want to rally stuff? Do you want to protect stuff by being the garrison captain, right? There is a ton of reward for your passion toward optimizing your account and also your team's gameplay, all the way down to individual talent point choices, can make the difference in the permanent losses that you and your kingdom experience as you battle against other major kingdoms. Okay? And even picking, by the way, and being passionate about what alliance you join and what kingdom you join, whether or not you play Ark of Osiris and which team you play on, whether or not you create extra accounts to send resources to your main account known as farm accounts, okay, whether or not you create accounts that just send their troops to go fill stuff and contribute to the battle, but you're not actively playing. This list goes on and on and on. And I mention this because there are so many ways in which being passionate about the game gets rewarded. Even being passionate about getting to know the other people you're playing with can be extremely rewarded for your experience with the game. And so the more time you spend building up your game knowledge and working on these different things, not only the better you will perform, but the more rewarding I think your experience will be. So to sum it all up, the 5 biggest reasons, in my opinion, why you should consider playing Rise of Kingdoms in 2024, and the reason why I still play, that there's tons to do, your actions have serious consequences, the communities that you will take those actions with are absolutely massive, bringing a sort of scale to it that's difficult to comprehend until you're in it. And even then, those big events in this game will build up and hype and build up and hype and build up and hype. And your passion through all of that is super rewarded, all the way down to the micro optimizations of your account and your gameplay. There is reward for those choices. Some reward is obviously bigger than others, and it depends on kind of what you're doing and, like how you spend your time. Okay. Like, for example, right? There's ways to get value that, look, I've been playing for 6 years. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time doing certain things. Like when you hit a barbarian, technically you can use area of effect damage and hit 2 at a time, right? Like there are little things you could do. And even that is super rewarded. So you can sort of choose how intensely you want to play. But if you do, the payoff is there. GG's. If you enjoyed the vid, throw a like on here, consider subscribing. Alternatively, if you're looking for more detail around like what it is I've found so satisfying about this game for 6 years and some of the stories around why I still play, I'll have a card right over here. Okay, it'll be in the end screen. And I'll also have a video right over here. It's a beginner guide to help you gain power quickly. Because if you want to get a jump start, like I said, your passion is rewarded. There's a ton you can learn on YouTube, which is why I made this channel. And I think you'll find those resources super helpful. Card's right over here.